and strength and Moran how he was lost out to serve with heart and mind on nation bound in freedom to send nation bound in freedom, peace and Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you appreciate that. That's a very operatic voice. And of course, TK is one of my students. I coach on Wednesdays, if you're free to come and join. I'm just messing around, don't mind me. No occasion will be complete and would be right without the presence of God. So please, we'd like to call on Reverend Dr. Matthew Shiabade of the Living Springs Baptist Church to please come and give us the opening prayers. If you could indulge us once again, please, and be upstanding. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Shall we pray together? Father, we thank you this morning. We thank you for your power. We thank you for your presence. We thank you for peace in Nigeria. We thank you for Verdant Zeal Group. We thank you for this 4th edition of Innovention Lecture Series. Thank you for Deacon Tunji Olugbodi, the GMD. Thank you for the wife. Thank you for the staff, the management, the board of directors. We said, Lord, accept our thanksgiving in Jesus' name. Lord, as we sit here today to brainstorm, to learn about innovation concerning our nation, you will help us to set a new agenda for the national development in the name of Jesus. Holy Spirit, have your way. Oh Lord, take control. And once again, we pray for peaceful election on Saturday, March the 28th. Lord, you will take control. Your will be done. You will give us the president after your own heart. In the name of Jesus. No violence. No violence. Nigeria will be at peace. It shall be well. Lord, by the time we finish and we leave this place today, we will have reasons to give thanks to your name. In Jesus' name we have prayed. And the people say amen.
Thank you, sir. Fantastic. Well done, sir. I think the parties will be looking for your support with that kind of speech. Just to get us in the mood, before we get to the serious matter at hand for today, a lot of information, a lot of knowledge will be imparted today from gentlemen and ladies who are experts, professionals, who are founders, creators, who are leaders of thought in their fields. So we're going to really, really learn a lot today. And please, by all means, have a paper and pen ready because today really is special. I would like to call on, just to lighten the mood a bit, just to get us in the frame of mind. It's early morning. My man TK once again, just to give us a few minutes of a nice little repertoire. And from then on, we'll get the proceedings on the way. Please, once again, put your hands together for TK. Sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Because We Believe, and it's Amacredi Eva. It's a combination of Italian and English. So, ladies and gentlemen, Amacredi Eva. Thank you very much. Guarda fuori già, mattina. Questo è un genere che ricorderà ai santi in preghiera in fuori e chi credente non si arrenderà. Once in every life there comes a time we walk out alone and into the night. The moment won't last, but then we remember it again when we close our eyes, like stars across the sky. Tu dovrai vincere, tu dovrai vincere. Guarda pianto mio con sorti mai, accanto nel cuore e sono i suoni e speranze vengo per sposare che verrà ci un Gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fantastic. Well done. One more time, please. Give me a round of applause, please. It's a very special talent, no doubt. Please don't forget the name TK. Now, if you take a little glance through, I trust everybody has a program, you can tell that the caliber of this event is definitely on the highest level by the quality of people who have not only agreed to be part of it, but also honored the invitation and are here with us today. So really, it is a big thank you to Verdant Zeal. They've been doing it and doing it very well, and each year it gets bigger and bigger. Now, I'd like to call on stage our chief host, a gentleman who has been integral in making sure that this particular series runs smoothly, and we are now on the 4th edition today. He's the founder and the group managing director of Verdant Zeal. Please welcome Mr. Tunji Olugbodi.
Hello? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thankfully, we do not have many politicians in the hall today, so I think the protocols will go quite fast. First and foremost, I'd like to thank God Almighty for making this day possible. I thank Him because it's not in all situations when you propose for events to hold or when you propose to do certain things that it comes to pass the way you programmed it to be. So all glory be unto the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Before I go into my welcome speech proper, I'd like to express how very privileged I am on behalf of the staff, management, and board of Verdant Zeal. Not just because we have very distinguished people among us today, but because indeed we have also received very enthusiastic support from different quarters with respect to the Innovention Series. Ladies and gentlemen, in the hall this morning, I have my fathers in the business of marketing, communication, and advertising. So when I express how very privileged I am, I'm sure you will understand that indeed we are privileged. We have in our midst this morning Mr. Abiodun Oluni Ishobanjo, and I call that with all due respect, sir. Thank you very much, sir. He is regarded as the doyen of the advertising industry in Nigeria, and indeed, I think in Africa. Sir Steve Omojafo is one of the first set of people to receive a national honor as an advertising practitioner. So Sir Steve Omojafo, MFR, thank you very much for agreeing to be our chairman today. I did say that we have very distinguished people amongst us, and I'm very glad that you're able to make it. I would not like to bore us with so much protocol, but suffice it to say that today we are very privileged to have our distinguished panelists, and indeed the guest speaker, Professor Pat Utomi, who will be leading the direction of the talk this morning. I need to acknowledge that in all of these situations, in one or two instances, it's not been easy for people to get here. When I spoke with Professor Pat Utomi yesterday, he was in Onitsha, and he did assure me that he was going to get back into Lagos yesterday evening. Coming in this morning, you can imagine how shocked I was when he said he's just coming in from Abuja, straight from the airport. Okay, I don't know whether he has a private jet, but the important thing is that even in all of that, he's able to make it here this morning, and we are very, very glad that he's able to join us. Please, a round of applause for Professor Pat Utomi. It is not my duty to recognize the panelists, but I'd like to acknowledge them in my own special way, that we did invite them and they are here this morning. Mrs. Funke Egbemode, thank you very much for being here. Mr. Larry Bale, who is one of the very first set of people that allowed me to cut my teeth in the business of advertising when he was the doyen at Pfizer, is here this morning, Mr. Larry Bale. We have Mr. Akunle Afonlayo. I think if you want to call him in any other name, just say October 1. Because at the recent MVCA, October 1 swept almost all the awards at that ceremony. Mr. Akunle Afonlayo, foremost filmmaker, is here this morning with us. Mr. Chris Uwaje is also here ably represented because he had to travel at short notice. We thank him for sending in a representative, and he will be duly introduced at the appropriate time. We also have with us Mr. Kayode Akitemi, who is going to be the moderator this morning. Mr. Kayode Akitemi, perhaps more famously known for his anchoring of that very popular program on Channels TV called Sunrise on Saturday, I think. Mr. Akitemi, thank you very much for being here. There are several distinguished people in this hall this morning. I have my employers here, and when I say my employers, I mean it in all intents and purposes. I have the distinguished members of the board of Verdant Zeal here. Not everyone is here, but they are, we have more majority here. I'd like to start with Mr. Femi Oyewole, who is here. He's a member and the director of the board. Mrs. Akishola is here. She's representing her husband, Mr. Femi Akishola. We have Mr. Barrister Adeniji, who is also a member of the board. And we also have with us Mr. Wole Akingbade, who is also a member of the board. But you know there are boards, and there are some boards that you answer to because they're your employers. But you also have a board where you have a chairman that is bigger than you. So I have my board chairman here, the one that is permanent, that whether I turn right or turn left, when I wake up and sleep, she remains the board chairman eternally. My wife, Mrs. B. Itunji Olubode, is here. I have to say that so that I can get my dinner when I get home later tonight. Thank you very much. Also amongst us, we have very distinguished clients, people who have given us the privilege and the opportunity of working on their briefs and working on their accounts. I'm glad to identify Mr. Eric Madiu, who is of Peugeot and Pan Nigeria. We have Abubakar Jimeta, who also led a bunch of people from, Mr. Abubakar Jimeta from Peugeot. We have amongst us Mr. Chris Alabi, we call him. He's the chairman of the Caron Group of Companies. There's a friend of mine, an older friend of mine that I draw a lot of inspiration and insight from anytime I run into a brick wall. He's here this morning. I'd like to especially recognize Mr. Chris Mama. I know he doesn't like that, but I'd like to recognize him especially. I'd also like to acknowledge the gentleman that said the prayer earlier on, Reverend Dr. Matthew Shinyobade. He's the only director, he's the non-executive director that we have in Verdant Zeal. He's a very close friend of the house. He's always lifting us up in prayers. In actual fact, he got here this morning at about 8:13 in the morning because he wanted to beat the traffic from Festac. Thank you very much. God bless you, sir. This event that we have this morning perhaps might not have happened in the way we are going to experience it, if not for the support and indeed the commitment and, may I say, the facilitation of one of my fathers, and I'm sure he's very well known to the house now. Uncle Sam Amuka actually is a great prime mover of this old Innovention Series. Unfortunately, as you do well know, he's also a member of the Peace Committee, and they've been called someone to Abuja this morning for a meeting, so he's not able to be with us. But from that very famous table, the Vanguard, we do have Mr. Benga Adefaye, who is the general manager and editor-in-chief. He's here this morning, and I can very well say he's representing not just Uncle Sam, but the entire Vanguard clan. Mr. Benga Adefaye, thank you very much. God bless you. I'd like to say in the parlance that we all recognize, I think in the political setting, when they say all protocols duly observed. But in doing that, I'd like to especially acknowledge everyone in this room for your presence here and for being part of the Innovention Series. Thank you very much, and God bless you, and all protocols duly observed. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all to the 4th Innovention Series. As we do well know, Africa is at the threshold of something great. With an estimated population of about 1.1 billion, huge deposits of natural resources, cost-effective labor, a teeming youth population, and an appetite for consuming just about anything the world produces, There is so much potential waiting to be exploited. Yesterday, the message from President Obama went viral. And in his broadcast yesterday to Nigeria and Nigerians, preceding this weekend's presidential elections, he says, and I quote, "Nigeria is a great nation, and you can be proud of the progress you have made. Together, you've won your independence, emerged from military rule, and strengthened democratic institutions. You've strived to overcome divisions and turn your diversity into a source of strength. You've worked hard to improve the lives of your families and built the largest economy in Africa. Now you have a historic opportunity to help write the next chapter of Nigeria's progress by voting in the upcoming elections. For elections to be credible, it must be free, fair, and peaceful." These were the words of President Barack Obama. Yet, in the midst of so much potential, our continent, and by extension, our nation, is fraught with so many challenges. Challenges that seem to prevent us from assuming our true nature as a giant to be reckoned with. But this is not a pity party or a platform for trading blames. This Innovention Series is a think tank for finding relevant solutions that can move us forward. This is a place where common Nigerians who have deep and unrelenting loyalty to Nigeria's growth and development can marinate its ideas with the intent of putting them into action when the opportunity presents itself. This year, our prime focus is on the role of innovation in creating a new agenda for national development. Why innovation, you may ask? Because it is at the heart of everything we do. Inventions and innovations that change the world have always started from the very smallest ideas. The remote possibility that the Wright brothers conceived of the idea of building crafts which could stay airborne in the sky relates a lot to our free-spirited fantasies as children, like building kites and watching them blow freely in the wind. With this year's Innovention Series, there has never been a more peculiar period to emphasize the power and consequence of new thinking. It is a time when the world economy is more unpredictable than ever, and as it relates to our nation with oil prices being at an all-time low. But it is also a time to think outside the box if we must attain our full potential as a nation. But while we pursue this agenda, we must be conscious of those skeptics around us, the unbelieving who still view innovation as an abstract term. We must never bow to the agenda of intellectual laziness, an agenda that will rather tread the less riskier, less beaten path of limitation, or imitation if you like, which always ends up with a distasteful end product with no enduring value. Rather, we must rise up with the can-do spirit of a true Nigerian and move our nation forward. Today, innovation is a mainstream discipline that defines the extent and boundary of possibilities and productivity in different areas of human endeavor. At its heart is the deliberate application of information, imagination, and initiative in deriving greater or different values from the use and application of resources. But what makes it dynamic is the continuous utilization of all processes by which new ideas are generated and converted into useful products, services, or tangible offerings. The time to act is now. Everywhere, Nigerians are gaining acclaim in virtually all fields. There is no gainsaying the fact that Nigeria is a potential superpower, a reluctant heir. Africa's biggest economy, the most populous black nation, giant of Africa, the world is waiting for us. How can we hook them to our supply? How can we create a worldwide demand for proudly Nigerian products that will result in foreign exchange and stem the Naira slide. Products and services that are hinged on innovation. This is the right time to create a favorable, innovative environment to address the sectors that will lead to job creation, to a green economy, industrialization, and all the other possibilities of our dreams. To win today and secure tomorrow, we simply cannot afford not to innovate. Whatever the industry or application, history has proven that only the most advanced species survive. This is an essential activity for our survival. It is not an option. It is non-negotiable. It is a necessity. We either innovate or we die. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, brothers, professional colleagues, my fathers, my sisters, my brothers, welcome to Innovention 2015. Thank you and God bless you.
Can we have another round of applause for our chief host, please? In a short while, these seats will be occupied by a unique blend of brain trusts who will be taking questions and also giving you ideas and talking in general about what we're here for today. But I'd like to give you, for those of you who've never been to one of these series, I'd like to give you a bit of a background just for a few minutes to get an idea. As I said earlier on, this is the fourth in the series. So if we just dim the lights, if we just focus on either of the screens, either side of the hall, and just get a background of what the series have been all about.
To teach kids. It's called blended learning. And here at Alliance Smith-Tech High School in Los Angeles, Veronica Bain uses it to introduce her 9th graders to Romeo and Juliet.
What did Romeo do? What is he referring to?
In her classroom, students are divided into groups of 12.
It's hard to adapt to a class of 36, but to a class or a station of 12, it's very easy. So who steps in to fight instead? A student can get the same information 3 different ways.
While she teaches a lesson,
how did Tybalt kill Mercutio?
Another group uses their laptops for collaborative work.
Now, are you working independently right now, or are you supposed to be working together? Collaboratively, okay.
Others work independently, using software that adapts to their reading level.
Once you start getting better and start accelerating more, then the articles get bigger. You start going into bigger grades, and the articles are more complex now, and the questions are more complex, and it really helps you become a better reader.
What does blended learning allow you to do in a classroom that you couldn't do before?
With this model, it forces you as a teacher to structure your classroom in such a way that no kid falls by the wayside.
Technology also helps keep these digital natives on the right track.
I am wondering about a couple things.
Principal Lori Rhodes uses remote desktop to keep an eye on her students.
Let's say I go into Mr. Romero's class, and here come all of his screens. So
What is that?
yeah, exactly. So I would say the exact same thing.
Except maybe it's science.
It's true. And this is a Spanish class, however. And this person is watching insects versus arachnids. I can click on that, and I can send a message, and I can say, are you supposed to be watching this video? And it says from Dr. Rhodes. And then let's say, oh, see, they changed their screen.
The staff here believes using the best of traditional teaching and technology will develop skills critical to future success.
What we're seeing is kids who can communicate quickly, who can get data quickly, who can differentiate for themselves or expect their teachers to do so. Not what we had as kids.
Computers and technology opened up a whole new venue of exploration for myself in art. I began my artistic life as a painter, but when I started working with computers, I realized they could be more than just conventional business tools. Computers could become a tool for creating art. Exploration drives my work. I need to discover new ideas and concepts, new challenges. Through my work, I explore the interaction between individuals and technology. Well, the computers create data, and I love to work with the aesthetics of data.
Your typical sites are Homeland Security, casino, airport. We are in 100 universities, 100 hospitals all over the world. We've really pioneered bringing a lot of IT technology into this marketplace. Some of the faster drive speeds that are needed, some of the things that free up the bandwidth to take the camera ingestion.
The video surveillance industry used to be all analog cameras, very grainy video, much like you saw in the news of the gas station footage. Today, camera technology has gotten so good that we can cover every single seat in a professional stadium, down to a labeling on their shirt, to the type of shoes or purse maybe the person had. The benefit of network-based security cameras is much higher resolutions and also storing it on servers that could give larger retention than what the industry was used to. Once you have IP video, running analytics on top of it is definitely something that's trending. So in the analytics side, we have license plate capture, facial recognition. We can have other analytics such as loitering, object left behind. The video is also being used for business tools, such as traffic flow within the retail space, how much traffic each aisle gets, people counting, how many parking spots are available in a certain parking garage. So we're seeing it being utilized and adapted in such a way that it's everywhere. It's something to stay.
Nós conseguimos conhecer o ambiente tropical da forma adequada e conseguimos, a partir daí, desenvolver espécies vegetais adaptadas ao ambiente tropical, conhecer e dominar o manejo do solo e dos recursos naturais em geral. O resultado disso tudo é que o Brasil se tornou um dos 3 maiores exportadores de alimentos do mundo.
O Instituto Agronômico de Campinas, ele foi fundado em 1887 e foi a primeira instituição a fazer análise de terra e análise de folha, fazer análise de solo no Brasil para fins de avaliar a fertilidade. E desde então tem dado uma contribuição muito grande para o desenvolvimento da agricultura brasileira.
O Brasil não tem nenhuma chance de ter sucesso na produção agrícola sem uso de fertilizantes. E nisso, nós começamos a nos aproximar das empresas e a Yara foi a primeira empresa que demonstrou grande interesse nessa geração de conhecimento e tecnologia para aumentar a eficiência do uso dos nutrientes no Brasil, sobretudo pensando que aqui o ambiente é tropical.
O Brasil é o maior produtor de suco de laranja do mundo. Nós produzimos aí 75% do suco de laranja consumido no mundo. Há aproximadamente 10 anos atrás, quando começou essa parceria com a Yara e o Instituto Agronômico, nós tínhamos uma área cultivada.
Thank you very much. Apologies for any of the technical glitches. Well, please put your hands together for that wonderful package there. I hope everyone got a good view of it, even from that side as well. That's just basically give you an idea of what we're talking about. Now, I'm going to invite just a brief background on some of our panelists today. And I'd like you all to be generous with the applause as they come up on stage. Just to take a seat. Everybody has a name there. Some of them will be coming up right now. Please put your hands together, please, for the general editor of the Sun newspapers, a renowned writer and columnist, holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and a postgraduate diploma in journalism from Nigerian Institute of Journalism, Lagos. Please welcome Mrs. Funke Egbemode, the general editor of the Sun newspapers, please. As our chief host mentioned earlier on, Chris Uwaje, the founder, chief software architect, and chairman of Connect Technologies Limited. He's also the CEO of Mobile Software Solutions, the immediate past president of the Institute of Software Practitioners in Nigeria, and a fellow of the Nigerian Computer Society, and a founding member of Africa Emerging Technologies Response Forum. He can't be with us today, but we're lucky enough to have Mr. Pius Eke Jr., representing Mr. Chris Uwaje. He's a managing director, Mobile Software Solutions Limited. Please give him a big round of applause. We also have the director of Business School Netherlands and the regional director of the House Consulting Group, a consultant with passionate focus on strategy, leadership, marketing, and systems, with over 33 years of business management experience in leading FMCG world-class global corporations. Please welcome Mr. Larry Balle with us here, Director, the Business School Netherlands. We have a gentleman, is the MD and CEO of Golden Effects Pictures, an actor, director, and producer, whose entrance into the movie making has elevated the art form, the quality of Nigerian movies. Born into a family of famous theatre and Yoruba film directors and producers and actors. His father, the late Adeyemi Adelove, Ade Afolayan. He's always been involved in the arts from the very, very beginning, from the left the banking industry for full-time acting, and movie making in 2005 and has not looked back since. Please welcome Mr. Kunle Afolayan, please. And I can also add, has still not given me a part in any of his films yet, but we're still waiting. We are going to call on our moderator for later this morning, the general manager in charge of operations as Channels Television. You might have seen his face, you might have heard about him. He's an award-winning broadcast journalist and consistently has shown great skills in broadcast journalism, information technology, and has been a star, a shining star, right here on the Nigerian multimedia platform. Studied mass communication, majoring in broadcast journalism and production, and his skills include radio and television program production, presentation, and syndication. Welcome, Mr. Kayode Akintemi, please, our moderator, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very, very privileged, as was mentioned earlier on, to have giants in the industry with us today, people who have not only been leaders, but also have helped to carve and make this industry the powerhouse that it is in the Nigerian economic sector. And we have such a gentleman with us here who's going to be coming up to say a few words right now. The chairman of this occasion, a renowned advertising practitioner and the executive chairman of STB McCann Lagos. He previously served as the president of the Association of Advertising Practitioners of Nigeria, AAPN, and vice president of International Advertising Association, IAA, Nigerian chapter. At various times, a sub-editor with Daily Times, group head client service, Lintas Limited, and client service director at Roosevelt Advertising, which he co-founded. He served as the chairman of the board at Zenith Bank, PLC, until June 16, 2014, and serves as his non-executive director. Holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the prestigious Department of Mass Communication of the University of Lagos, and has also attended several advertising programs in the United States of America, Australia, Holland, United Kingdom, and around Africa. As mentioned earlier on, he made history as the first Nigerian advertising practitioner to be confirmed with the prestigious national honor of the Member of the Federal Republic. Please welcome, absolute giant, sir. And we are happy, Sir Steve Bamidele Omojafo, MFR, our chairman for the occasion. Yes, sir.
Let me start off by thanking everybody here who made time out of the very busy schedule to be here to honor one of us, and that's Tunji Olubodi, who I met a long time ago. He's one gentleman who always want to learn, always want to innovate, and always want to ask questions about things around him. Worked through a number of agencies before he thought it was about time for him to get out of it all, sit down and innovate and start off something new altogether. And so when he invited me to be chairman, as a matter of fact, I've been following this series. I was here last year for the third in the series. And so when he called upon me this time, I said, Tunji, did you pick on me because I've been coming every year, or because you thought there was something new I could add to it all? And he said, look, for whatever it is, you've been with me right from the beginning, and right now it's just about time that I get you closer into the Innovention Series. So I'm extremely happy to be here, and I'm extremely happy to see all the beautiful people that I'm seeing here around me who think that innovation is something that we got to do. Innovation is something that without it, we just cannot go anywhere. Innovation is something that even our little children in our homes today are beginning to be part of creating new things they come up with new words that even you, their dads and mom, keep on wondering, where is that coming from? This is all about creating, this is all about innovating, and this is all about improving our lives in whichever way you want to take a look at it. So I want to congratulate Verdant Zeal for this most innovative Innovention Series, now in its fourth unbroken years. I also want to welcome the guest speaker, the indefatigable Professor Patrick Utomi. I want to welcome the moderator, the panel of discussants, and of course you, the good people who have come here. You already know about the theme of this year's lecture, which is the role of innovation in creating a new agenda for national development. Simply put, innovation is the process of translating an idea or invention into a product or service that creates added value for consumers. Today you want to talk about who's a typical customer, and you want to identify just one person who you can give all the attributes in terms of a particular field, a particular invention, a particular innovation, somebody that fits right into it. And that's somebody who is always on the move. You can't catch him up in one spot for too long a time. There's so much happening around, they get so bored, except there's something new that is happening. So innovation is all about creating that process that adds a lot of value for you to be able to pin down one good customer. Innovation involves deliberate application of information, imagination, and initiative in creating greater values from resources. And this includes the processes by which new ideas are generated and converted into greater ideas. In the business world, innovation often results when ideas are applied by a company in order to further satisfy the needs and expectations of customers. What then will be the role of innovation in our national development? This indeed is what we are set to listen to today from the expansive repertoire of the erudite teacher, social commentator, and economic/political activist, Professor Pat Utomi, as he will, as usual, do justice to the topic. But before he comes on, let me whet your appetite a little bit by taking a cursory look at the Nigerian economy, the Nigerian environment in 2014, and a little peep into 2015. In 2014, rate of inflation was single digit, about 8%. Rate of employment remained extremely high, hovering around 30%, especially among the youth population. Lending rates averaged 25%, and you know what that means. How do we, really talk about innovation, the environment in which we are operating from is extremely important. And that's why I'm taking us through this, so that we can situate whatever we're going to listen to today as it affects us as people and as Nigerians who have so much ahead of us in terms of what we can do with the nation itself. Growth of the economy in 2014 was 6%, even after the famous rebasing exercise which everybody is screaming about. You really want to find out at the end of the day, what have we benefited from rebasing? True enough, we now know that the economy is bigger or larger than what we ever thought. But then in terms of the practical things that we stand to benefit in growing our economy, there's still so much more that needs to be done. In 2014, incidence of poverty stood at 69%. Do we, in truth, have any reason to maintain a figure as high as this as a figure for poverty? Not even at Ghana, not even Cotonou or Togo across the border has a figure as high as this. Yes, of course, we could always say population is so high. That's not the issue, no matter how high. In fact, for me, the higher the population, the higher the number of people who can create and who can innovate. So the population for me is the least of our problems. It's just the fact that we are not thinking, we are not acting, we are not innovating. There's growing inequality in the system. And by that I mean that 20% of the population are enjoying the larger percentage of the country's resources. That's not how we should be. And so the time comes when we've got to sit down, take a hard, critical look at ourselves and the systems we operate to see how we can change things around. In 2014, despite the unbundling of PHCN, power supply remains largely comatose. The country's debt profile continued to rise. In 2015, if the decline in oil revenue persists, the already poor working population will become even more poorer. By extension, unemployment rate will continue to rise. Lending rate will continue to be out of reach of you and I. The economics of the current elections is already putting increased pressure on the market and likely to lead to increased inflation. I mean, for you who have all been around, since I was born, I haven't seen an election that probably that expensive as to what we are seeing today. Somebody has said to me, oh, it's all money within the system, but how are we channeling? Okay, the media people could be smiling to the bank every day. Maybe more people have been employed to handle one aspect of it or the other. But at the end of the day, it doesn't give us growth. Because what we are talking about is growth and national development. 2015 will likely be characterized by lots of uncertainties and economic and business activities. My recipe for national development, and this is to be able to get our panelists to pick up a few things in terms of what our own expectations are. One, we are hoping for a credible election at the end of the day, which means in the next 1 week, we certainly will have our president, and we are praying that the best president will emerge. Whoever emerges, we expect him to hit the ground running in the following areas. Change the structure of our economy. For me, the time is gone when all you want to do is study English, study history, study geography. That has not led us where we should be. I don't have anything wrong with picking up subjects where you think you are best at. If that's what you want to do, when we get out, let's try to use our hands and our heads. Let's create a situation where we all don't have to go and line up for miles trying to get a job from Nigerian NIS, Immigration Service, and stuff like that. We're looking for a creative economy. We're looking for creative educational system where people can come out of there, get something doing on their own. Nigerians want to build houses. They go to Ghana, they go to Togo, they go to Cotonou to bring artisans who are going to do your tiling for you, who are going to do your carpentry for you, who are going to paint our homes. Meanwhile, we carry certificates, BA history, BSc, whatever. We are not sitting down to think and use our heads to be able to get our country moving in the direction we think it should. Here we want to reduce inequality. We can only do that if we move out on our own to get something done. Of course, we want to change emphasis on the kind of educational system. We want to rescue corruption with more vigor and sincerity. We want to reorganize our health sector. We want to rebuild decaying infrastructures, power, roads, transportation. We have so much water, waterways. Let us think how we can utilize this. If everybody has to leave Ikeja by road and get to Lagos Island 6 hours later, you can calculate what we have lost. So we need faster means of transportation, waterways, railway. We paid enough lip service to all this. We really need to sit back and do something concrete. As a country, I believe we need clear-cut policies to deal with our major socio-economic problems and a free democratic process that puts power in capable hands. We need intelligence, we need vision, and we need drive. To create a new agenda for national development, we need to be innovative, acquire new skills, and a large dose of commitment. We need stable political and economic systems. And beyond it all, we need leaders who can think, act, and command respect. With the expected new government in place pretty soon, it's time again to restart meaningful conversations and dialogue about the future of our country, and it is hoped that today's discourse will help point the country to a new direction. Finally, I want to welcome you all again to a most thrilling afternoon and urge you to listen most attentively to Professor Patutomi and, of course, fellow participants in all that we're going to talk about today, or we want to listen to today, and we want to leave here today being better in terms of our attitude, better in terms of our expectations, and better in what we as a people. I see a lot of young people here, dynamic people, who should do some more thinking and say to ourselves, where do we go from here? Once again, I welcome you and wish you a beautiful afternoon. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a more generous applause for our chairman, please? Come on. We'd like to speed up the proceedings now. Without further ado, I'd like to give you a brief outline of a gentleman whom I'm sure most of you have seen or heard of speak at some occasion somewhere. Maybe you've seen him on television as well. he is on his own a Nigerian brain trust on his own. But I'd like to welcome him today, one of Nigeria's most prominent professors of political economy and a management expert with a passion for dignity of the human person and the spirit of enterprise. He was Director of Research and Corporate Affairs, News Training Consultancy, Lagos, Chairman, CEO, Patik Communications Limited, Special Assistant to the President, Shehu Shagari, Chairman, CEO, Utomap Holdings Limited, AGM, Volkswagen Nigeria Limited, and former two-time presidential candidate in Nigeria. Holds a first degree in mass communications from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Also holds an MA, MPA, and a PhD in political economy. He co-founded the Lagos Business School, now known as the Pan-African University, in 1994. Was a scholar in residence at the American University, USA, in 1996. A research associate at the Harvard Business School, US, also in 1996. He also belongs to several professional bodies, such as Nigerian Institute of Public Relations, NIPR, Institute of Directors, IOD, and the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, and the Nigerian Economic Society. He coordinated the establishment of several civil society groups on good governance and accountability, such as Transparency in Nigeria, the Center for Values and Leadership, the Concerned Professionals, and the Restoration Group. He's an accomplished columnist, Chairman Business Day Media Limited, and creator of Patito's Gang, a television talk show, and has published several books on political economy and management. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest speaker for today, please give a resounding welcome, Professor Pat Utomi.
Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I begin by congratulating our chief host for this series, because I think it is very important, if we're going to travel the appropriate track, for a sensitivity to innovation. So an Innovention Series is something that we have to value. First, I'd like to say about innovation that in some ways it should not seem like something special. It should not seem extraordinary, because man was created to innovate. The very purpose of creation, and it's my favorite interpretation of Genesis 2:15, is that man was created to be a co-creator with God, moving creation towards its perfection. And so, by our nature, we are supposed to continually innovate. Unfortunately, we don't do it as well as we should very often. Indeed, man's existence on earth was for millennia all misery, because he failed to innovate appropriately. There's a nice book, really nice book, actually, for some reason, but I have it with me, written by a professor at Princeton called Angus Deaton. The book is titled The Great Escape. It's about how man has escaped misery in recent history. And the truth is that for millennia, and for most of the human race, life is still an extremely miserable enterprise. Batches of humanity has begun to escape this misery. And that book is essentially a discussion of the Great Escape, of how poverty, which has held man back for so long, a function of lack of innovation in many areas, particularly around healthcare and, of course, productivity, which enables us to improve the quality of life that we live. I think, therefore, that the appropriate place to begin a conversation on innovation is to do a cursory swing, through human history and how man has evolved through this great run of misery into an age in which a few of us, a few human beings now live extremely comfortably. As a historian who's dominated thinking of how civilizations have emerged in recent times, it's a young historian who has chairs at Harvard, Oxford. He seems to be all over the place. His name is Neil Ferguson. Neil Ferguson writes in the book Civilization, a grand sweep of man's more recent successes, and has worked himself into what I would like to now describe as a dominant paradigm in explaining how human beings have made progress. And that paradigm is built significantly around the role of institutions and how institutions aid human progress. Indeed, Neil Ferguson's work in many ways was precursor to the book by Robinson and Acemoglu, which is titled Why Nations Fail, which also takes the perspective of institutions in why some nations succeed and others fail. In fact, even more interestingly, a Financial Times editor, a global trade economist called Alan Beatty, has done a remarkable excursion of looking at why North America succeeded so much more than Latin America, and particularly focuses on the difference between the performance of Argentina compared to the United States of America. Because if you look at Argentina in the 1930s, the United States in the 1930s, they were literally at the same level of development. They were among the top 10 economies in the world. But by the 1990s, Argentina had dropped to West Africa level GDP, while the United States was by far the world's preeminent economy. And the question of what happened that led to a great gap developing between these two countries is really an understanding of the role that institutions play in human development. And today I would like to speak sort of to the role that institutions play in innovation and sustaining human progress in a manner of speaking. But still just looking at the Great Escape and human misery. The late Peter Drucker made a very interesting statement just before he died that I like often to point to. He made the point that at the beginning of the 20th century, in the year 1900, the difference between the quality of life of the average African and the quality of life of the average European was marginal. The elite, the super rich at the top, who always had a way of cheating the rest of us and extracting more than they should, in Europe obviously had super quality of life. But most of humanity that lived in Europe and in Africa in 1900, the quality of their lives was more or less at the same level, perhaps marginally different. But by the close of the 20th century, the quality of life of the average African and the average European was like night and day. And so, during the 20th century, something happened that resulted in literally this great escape, escaping Africa. And that thing, from the Drucker perspective, was an increase in productivity. What led to this rise in productivity? In the main, you will find that it has to do with education and technology and how they relate. But there are other perspectives in looking at this. While I am going to emphasize the perspective of institutions and the role that they play in how the quality of our lives evolve, and particularly in how we innovate, I would like to also note that there's a perspective that comes from culture, and I think it's a very important perspective. There are debates, especially between economists and people who come from sociology and other social sciences about the importance relative to one to the other. There is a much celebrated Peruvian economist called Hernando de Soto, He's come here to Nigeria a couple of times. He's written this lovely book that's titled The Mystery of Capital. And Hernando de Soto argues, for example, that it's all about institutions. It's really about institutions that the West is rich and the rest of us are poor. And when he came to, I don't know which one, 2008 or 9 or whichever one it was, when he was trying to make this point, I was looking around the hall. I had a clear sense that few people on the audience really understood what he was talking about, even though he was making a very profound point, but it seemed too simple. The poor of the world have assets, but their assets constitute, in the main, dead capital. Because of institutional arrangements, things what he likes to call representational systems, where every plot of land that exists in the United States, for example, or in Europe, is documented somewhere, has value. And that value can enable you to access capital. You take a second mortgage on your house. That piece of land your grandfather left you in Scotland and lead you to then raise capital. So the asset is fungible. So it is capital. Huge acreage of land that your uncle left you in Ileoluji amounts to nothing. Said to the first bank manager, I have 300 hectares in Ileoluji. Okay, you have something. And so you stay poor. Whereas the guy in Europe can take a second mortgage on the house that his great-grandmother left somewhere in that place and is able to access money and grow wealthier and create more value. But the culture perspective is also a very important perspective. There's a gentleman called Jared Diamond. Jared Diamond, many of us will probably know. A number of interesting books he's written, but the one that interests me the most is titled Collapse: How Societies Have Failed Through Human History. And in the main, Jared Diamond's point is that it is values that shape human progress, and that most societies that fail because at some point there is a collapse of culture. I think it's a very powerful statement. It's a statement that I think in some ways was re-echoed by a colloquium at Harvard a couple of years ago, which was based on a statement by a former Harvard professor who became a politician and finished his career in the U.S. Senate, was succeeded by Hillary Rodham Clinton. And I recall the cover of Time magazine the week that he retired from the U.S. Senate. It was, no, not Time magazine, sorry, Newsweek. So we call him GLA, the greatest living American. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, who makes the point that, the central conservative truth is that it is culture and not politics that is responsible for the progress of a society. And the central liberal truth is that politics can change a culture and save it from itself. And I feel particularly, and I'm going to come back to this in the remarks that I make here later, feel particularly, what's the right word to say, special that this is coming in a week in which we pay tribute to the passage of Lee Kuan Yew. Because Lee Kuan Yew was given as a great example of a man who took a society that was literally nowhere and simply changed its culture. And in changing that culture, took that country in one generation from third world to the first. Taking a dirt poor fishing village into the biggest concentration of billionaires per capita anywhere on the planet Earth. How did that happen? I think understanding that is understanding the cultural explanation. And what I've argued in my writings, critical of De Soto's position, I love De Soto and his work, but critical of the position that it's only about institutions and that culture does not matter, is that both can work together And any who are familiar with my own work and are familiar with the growth drivers framework, what makes for growth, will know that it's a framework that includes a culture, it includes, obviously, institutions, includes policy choice, includes something that is critical to innovation that we'll talk about later, human capital, includes, obviously, creative destruction, entrepreneurship, and very, very importantly, includes leadership. Because the most important things that leaders do is shape culture. And Lee Kuan Yew was a classic example of a leader who shaped culture, and because he shaped culture in a certain direction, he made that society make phenomenal progress. And the point about innovation, again, is that it is a constant activity that man must continue to innovate. And that's why this whole business is called creative destruction. Society must creatively destroy what was yesterday's great advance if it is to have a greater advance. And the Austrian economist Joseph Schumpeter is particularly credited with the concept on the idea of creative destruction. Because, again, one of the games I play with my MBA students, I always get them cheap on this. One day somebody answered the question right, and I thought, oh my goodness, I finally failed. And the guy said, well, I have to confess, I heard you say it somewhere 2 years ago. I asked, which was the economy that had the highest per capita income in the world in 1789? Want to try you as a class? Highest per capita income in the world, 1789. You've heard me say it. That country was the poorest, is today the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. And he's right, that country is Haiti. Why was the country that had the highest per capita income in the world now the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere? Because there are trends, and the world is in constant change. Unless the rate of learning, and this is an axiom, it's called Rewan's axiom, unless the rate of learning is equal to or greater than the pace of change in the environment, the organization is progressively becoming a dinosaur. Haiti, based on the plantation economy, was the wealthiest country in the world in 1789. And then comes this fellow called James Watt. And James Watt redesigns the steam engine. In redesigning the steam engine, power-based production becomes possible. And man makes a phenomenal transition in his capacity to create wealth. Power-based production takes a further leap with the invention of the moving assembly line. And Henry Ford, in applying the concept of the moving assembly line, made mass production something that we all own and improved the quality of life of people. When the motor car was first invented, it was something for the phenomenally rich. And Henry Ford decided to build the Model T Ford, which he used the moving assembly line to make mass production. If you recall how obsessed Henry Ford was with the whole idea of mass production, the Model T Fords were all black. And the famous question I'm sure most of us have heard, somebody asked him, Mr. Ford, when are we going to have a red Model T? And Ford arrogantly says, you can have whatever color you want as long as it is black. So, but you know that nearly killed the Ford Motor Company. It was great because it was the first time ordinary people were owning motor cars. So just give me that Model T. I don't care whether it's black. Just give it to me. One of the things that technology and innovation did was, and of course, very important to this whole conversation, competition. Competition, General Motors begins to emerge from the combination of those other smaller players, and there is a red Chevrolet, there's a yellow Cadillac, and Ford begins to lose market share. In fact, if World War II had not come, and Henry Ford was succeeded by his grandson after World War II, because World War II helped with the war effort. The Ford Motor Company, which really taught us to produce cars in mass, would have died because of the mindset of Henry Ford, which in one era led to extraordinary success. I mean, one of the other points that I like to make from the Ford story and the quality of life that we all have is that people often don't realize that the concept of the middle class as we know it in the world today was literally a Ford invention. I mean, like we said, industrial class emerging, making money, workers were paid so badly in the grind. You all remember, read Charles Dickens and all of that. And Henry Ford was arguing with his workers. The labor unions wanted some wage increase. And Ford said no. He said, look, give us 5% wage increase. No, no. And one day Ford has this brainwave. Why should people who produce this car not be able to drive it? And he walks up the next day. People were asking for 5% wage increase. And he refused. He suddenly says, give them 100 and something % wage increase. They think he has gone mad. But that began a trend that led to the emergence of the middle class as we know it today. And people got quality income for good work done. That was innovation. And it helped the Ford Motor Company to become even much more successful. But in spite of those innovations from Henry Ford, the Ford Motor Company nearly dies because Ford did not respond to competition in the environment and the innovation that was coming from the competition. And so we need to talk through these together, innovation and competition and the context of innovation as we go on down this track. Again, but staying with the theme of institutions as critical to innovation. I think it's important to recognize that change and the adaptation of institutional frames to change is really at the heart of what sustains progress for mankind. It's a subject I can spend 30 hours talking about because it fascinates me a great deal. But somebody who's done a profound job of it and won a Nobel Prize in economics for this effort is a gentleman called Douglas North. In 1990, Douglas North wrote a book that was titled Institutions, Institutional Change and Economic Performance, to show how institutions evolve and how the evolution of those institutions and their ability to help adapt to change leads to societies being constantly on top of the game and making progress. I will, in this course of this conversation, by the way, how much time do I have? Because you look at Finland and all of those people and the whole Nokia revolution and all of that. You want to talk about the kind of institutional patterns that drove. Really, how much time do I have? Because I can get carried away. I need to be 15. Oh, it says 15 minutes. I'm still on the preamble. Okay. Okay. Well, let's just move on. Let me just suggest one or two, at least one other, must read along this part. And this is specific to innovation, especially financial innovation and economic growth. Two former University of Chicago Graduate School of Business professors called Raghuram Rajan and Luigi Zingales wrote this book titled Saving Capitalism from the Capitalists. An essential thrust of this conversation is the fact that the greatest danger to progress are today's successful capitalists. If you want advertising to make progress, drown Shobanjo. Those who make progress today do not want those who are coming to overtake them. And their ideas are from yesterday. If real progress must take place, you must creatively destroy them. And so people mistake when I say sometimes, if Nigeria is going to make progress, we've got to destroy Dangote. They say, oh my God, what is this guy saying? And that's the truth of the matter. Because capitalists are by nature, even though they make a lot of noise about competition, are inclined towards monopoly and domination. You see, the guys who invented the typewriter did a great thing for the world. I mean, look at how we used to write with feather and all cursive. Then somebody can go, ba, 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 boo, boo. This is major progress. But suddenly, somebody comes up with something that you can just go, the thing will correct itself, the thing will come back. This is magic. Who is doing this? Who comes up with this idea? It's usually some small guy, somewhere, who has no access to capital, who has, if this typewriter manufacturer knows about him, he will do everything to kill him. The essential argument of Rajan and Zingales is that the United States of America is one of the most renewing economies in the world because it has institutional arrangements that make it easy for that small guy to creatively destroy the great typewriter builders of this world. Because a young man, and one of the examples done in this presentation, which I won't obviously be able to get to, proved it in many ways. That when I ask finance people around here, how many of you are familiar with concepts like search funds, vulture funds, and those kinds of funds? And they think that something is wrong with me. But you know, somebody can walk up to a fund. Somebody has put together a list of 500 doctors who are paid $300,000 or something more a year. And what he does is he finds a smart guy. His only real asset is that he went to an extraordinary business school, for example. He went to a very good business school. And the guy says, I need $250,000 to search for a business that I can transform. If somebody walks up to BC at First Bank and says, okay, you see, I don't have any idea. I just want to go and look for a business I can transform. Please give me 10 million naira. What do you think he will do? I think they will send for security. They come and send this guy down. But there's a fund that just does that. With this list of doctors, they'll call them around and say, look, each of you, look, there's this guy. This guy is so smart. He did this at Harvard Business School. He did that at Stanford Engineering School. He wants to find a business he can transform. He needs $250,000. Each of them can put down $5,000. If they lose $5,000, it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money. But if that guy comes up with a great idea, can come back with a business plan to revamp that business, and they can hand that fellow another $20,000 a piece, it can turn out to be a winner of a business, and each of those doctors could either lose $30,000 or make $1 million. Specific case example that I like to give, it's got based on the light business, let me call it that. Chap gets access to such finance. He's looking for a business to transform. He runs into a mom and pop operation that are making candles. They're in the candle business. And he wonders, who is still making candles in this age? Obviously, he doesn't know where Nigeria is, so he doesn't know that we still need those things. So who needs candles in this world? Only when hurricane something goes past that you need it for a few hours before light comes back on. But some churches buy candles, some strange people buy candles. You know what I mean? So that's keeping this mom and pop alive, making this thing. But, if they could get some money, any money that is decent, they would get rid of the factory and go and buy some place in Florida and just go on cruises for the rest of their couple of years. So this guy makes them an offer for the factory and writes a business plan and goes back to the fund and says, the illumination business died 100 years ago. Nobody should be in the illumination business. But this factory can be in the mood business. So what do you mean mood business? You see that same candle? Can just drop some nice fragrance on it, put a nice package around it, and call it Valentine Mood Pack. And there is firm assurance that as Valentine's Day approaches, women lose all rationality. All they think of is that evening with their husband. They are not thinking this is light. And so a 25-cent candle is now offered for $9. 88 cents. And the women are just taking the thing off the shelf. Well, fellow's business plan passed. He bought the place. And a $15 million investment within 3 years was a $1.something billion enterprise. And each of those doctors walked away millionaires. Innovation in finance. And it goes on. But we're talking about development and nations. And that's going to be the peg, the hang of this. And so let me give a small example of a nation growing, developing, getting challenged, and eventually innovation and relieving it. When I lived in the United States as a grad student in the 1970s, there was a wonderful man called Jimmy Carter, who was president of the United States. Nice man, really wonderful man. But everything was going south. Inflation was 29%. American companies were losing competitiveness against Japanese rivals. Komatsu was giving Caterpillar a run for its money. Canon was overtaking Xerox. And so on. America was unsure of itself. Unemployment was beginning to rise. And Americans said, anyone but Carter. And this old man who had been running and running and running, called Ronald Reagan, gets into a debate with this president. And when Carter goes, Ronald Reagan will say, Mr. President, there you go again, Mr. President. And Ronald Reagan won that election. And Ronald Reagan, whom many of my friends insist already had Alzheimer's before that election, has his vision of America and brings men like Don Regan and Baker and all these people around him who share his vision. And half of the time he is sleeping and they are running America. But they created the American spirit, and the 18 and 19-year-olds rose to the occasion and created a new economy through the dot-com revolution, and America was back. This is how the vision of a country creates the context of innovation that renews a nation. I hope something like that happens to our country. It's about strategy. It's about strategy. And you cannot innovate without planning to innovate. Part of the track that led to the innovation following the Reagan ascendancy was the setting up of a competitiveness commission, which people like Michael Porter at Harvard were enormously effective in creating the context of innovation in America. I recall back in those days, there was a company that got its name from, one of his staff. This company we all know as Motorola. Maybe I should leave the history of Motorola and just go straight to this point. Motorola had a certain crisis, of his development pipeline and all of that. And Bob Galvin, who was chief executive of Motorola around 1980, 81, grandson of the founder of the business, had gone to Japan and seen the way things were being done in Japan. And figured, my goodness, if we don't change the way we do business, we're going to die. These guys are going to kill us. They're going to eat our lunch. And so there was a management conference. And he was coming straight from Japan and went into this management conference. He had not discussed with the structure of Motorola was a triumvirate. He had not had a conversation with the rest of them. And he says, look, if we don't change, if we don't innovate, we're going to die. And everybody kind of looked at each other and said, oh dear, Bob, he loves his brandy, but why do they allow him to drink it so early in the morning? Motorola was doing very well. Well, they were watching Japanese companies overtake the others, but because of the challenge Bob threw, The small guys on the shop floor agreed. They said, look, this is our development cycle, these are challenges, this and this and this. Motorola began to rethink how it innovated. You know, when Reagan then came and the Porter team, in this competitiveness commission, set up a prize, the Malcolm Baldrige Award for the quality producers in America. It was only natural that Motorola was the first winner of the Malcolm Baldrige Award. Malcolm Baldrige was Commerce Secretary under Ronald Reagan. And I think that in looking at this, we must seriously ask ourselves certain questions about how to. I was going to run through some national strategies, but I will not run through. But just to bear in mind what has happened in a place like Finland, and how Finland, that small country, could become the home of the Nokias of this world, a signature tune that the whole world came to sharing. It's about the educational system. It's about these institutional arrangements that ensure access for those who have the disposition to innovate. I was going to talk about Singapore, but one of the things that Lee Kuan Yew was beaten up on by some people who said he was it was an autocrat, he was blah, blah, blah. Singapore would come and say, look, this is where we're going. It means that next year, there will be places for 90 engineering people in our universities, 2 history people, 3 biochemists. If you don't want any of these subjects, stay at home. Literally speaking. And they got the appropriate kinds of education and skills that enabled Singapore to develop in the direction it chose to go. Look at our neighbors, because these things always seem far, from far, far places. Kenya is ahead of the world in mobile money technology. You go out in Nairobi, you can pay for your taxi ride with your cell phone. What were the conditions that led to Kenyans being that innovative with mobile technology, and how can we apply them? When the Agriculture Minister, Akin Adesina, talked about cell phones to farmers, and I know we beat up on him for all kinds of things, but we didn't think about the power of what that could do. That's innovation. And we need to be able to apply things to solve problems of today. So really looking at innovation, we need to bear in mind trends, problems, and sustainable solutions. And there are many things that we innovate that does not involve invention. Most times when we talk innovation, people think invention. They are not necessarily the same. Let's take Nollywood as an example. What was the invention in Nollywood? A group of out-of-work guys take video cameras that are dying and put cassette inside and begin to sell video. And an industry is created. That's innovation. It wasn't an invention, but it was a great innovation. And that is how society makes progress. I'm just trying to cut all of this stuff. Final analysis. Let me run to a conclusion. I think that it's important to recognize that the challenges before Nigeria as a country, if we're going to develop appropriately, with a youth bulge, which we should see increasingly as an asset and not a liability. Years ago, economists used to talk about the liability of population. And then we saw the countries that were gaining quality of life through having fewer and fewer children. And Japan's economy has been in trouble for quite some time now because it doesn't have young people to produce, because they have been refusing to produce. And now you are getting visa lottery and stuff like that because countries want to steal your very best because they're not producing enough to sustain their economies. But we have them plenty. What we need to do is have the right educational policy, ensure that these young people are well, and that we have the right values around them. They will innovate and can make this the hub for supporting global economies. And I've seen many of them doing remarkable work. I think the problem of our country is that we don't have the appropriate institutional arrangements quite yet. They're evolving, but if we have enough of the appropriate institutional support, we will see that this demographic situation will, instead of becoming a threat, become what economists now refer to as a demographic dividend. And so, if we do that, and if we look at value chains, look at our factor endowments, and each factor endowment that we have, my view of how we should run Nigeria, by the way, pardon me, it's not political, but I was involved in the writing of the manifesto of the APC, and this is inside it if you read it properly. You will see that we look at value chains and zones of development around the country, and that every part of the country has some endowments, factor endowments, which if we then educate people to dominate a global value chain of that, every part of this country will develop rapidly and will pace each other, and we will get the opportunity of the success that we deserve. I think that's an appropriate note to say thank you very much, and I appreciate the privilege of being here with you.
Can we have a larger round of applause for our guest speaker, Professor Patutomi, please? All right, ladies and gentlemen, fantastic. We're going to get on to an equally exciting part of this morning / afternoon. We'd also like to ask Professor Patutomi to join us on stage as well, because he's part of the panel that we're going to be discussing. And also I'd like to hand over now to our moderator, who's going to take hold of proceedings. Please put your hands together, please, for Mr. Kaede Akintemi, please.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as they often say, I remember Governor Fashola saying all these ideas of protocols and protocols absolutely unnecessary in situations where you just want to hit the ground running. So I will say all protocols observed, which is the usual Nigerian parlance. It's a great pleasure and honor to have the opportunity of being here to moderate this event, this particular conversation, because I've spent a number of years of my life working in the IT industry in the United Kingdom and seeing people who are whiz kids, who are geeky, and they sit there and they put programs together with logic and everything to create the kind of software that a lot of people suddenly think it looks so easy, but it takes years. Even the time I spent studying IT as well and sitting down writing programs in C++, the logic alone kills me. And that's why I did not last in that industry. It's just not my thing. But it's a pleasure to know that one can learn these things and be able to create stuff in terms of programs, in terms of software, and the software behind the application that we all use. Now, the first thing that crosses my mind, having listened to the chairman of the occasion and having listened to Professor Patutomi, first thing that crossed my mind is, what is that singular ingredient that is most critical to creating the evolution that makes it possible to have people who are innovative and who will have the passion to chase the creation of that innovation that is welling up in their minds? And I want to start with Professor Patutomi. He said a lot of things, but that one singular ingredient, I haven't clearly heard him state it. Is it education? Is it culture? Is it family? Is it something that you're burned with? I'd like to know. Prof, I'll start with you.
Okay, well, thank you so very much. I think that one of the problems that we have with solving problems is that we keep looking for just one thing that's responsible for that thing. Unicausal analysis is often fraught with challenges. There are many things that work in tandem to make certain things happen. But there's no question that education is fundamental to effectiveness. If you have the right education, it's more likely that you can do it. But if the culture is not right, for example, imagination coming alive even when you have the right kind of education, may not take place. There is, if you permit my going back to this, there's a Brazilian educator from about 45 years ago who wrote a remarkable a book called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed. His name is Paulo Freire. And Paulo Freire says that the problem with the education of colonized people is that they're educated to think in, it's that the head is like a piggy bank. Just drop some things. This guy can program, but he doesn't have a sense of which world he wants to see built. And so you need some ideological content so that this person can picture tomorrow, and that tomorrow that he sees, that vision of tomorrow, drives the imagination that makes what seems impossible today possible. And that's what ultimately drives his innovation. So education is key, but culture, which creates the values that make the person respond, is very, very important in the application of that education, just as institutional arrangements are.
Okay, that's a good one. I must be emphatic, Prof. It's not a case of just one key ingredient, but that one key ingredient, there's something
the trigger
in certain people, in a certain community, that makes it such that you find people within that community, they're all very creative and they're very innovative. Now, let me move on to Mr. Ballet. Now, if you were to look at the industry you have worked, I am sure over the last 10, 15, possibly 20 years, not giving away your age, but you will have seen people who are extremely innovative in their ideas and the delivery of their ideas. What is it you found in them that you will say truly inspiring and has led to the creating of new ideas, breaking barriers, creating new frontiers for things to happen?
I will speak just in the area I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with 3 core areas, or 4. I'm familiar with product innovation. I'm a student, I'm a perpetual learner, and over the years I've realized the fact that in the area of product innovation, what has encouraged product innovation is basically an ability to see opportunities. And I think in our culture, we have a way of describing things in a very negative way. We say, I don't have money, I will have done this. Instead of, if I have money, I could do this. One creates structural conflict. But when you describe your problem in a positive way, then it creates structural tension, which encourages you and motivates you. So the manner within which we are generally brought up, it's more like you describe your problem in a very negative way. And so product innovation, you don't see the opportunities when others are. So if we are going to really improve in product innovation, we've got to change our paradigm in the way people also learn and the way we teach. And I think the system in our educational system so far appears to be more in favor of theories rather than practice. Entrepreneurship should not be taught as a subject after you leave school. It should actually be an integral part, because entrepreneurship really means innovation, ability to look at opportunities in the marketplace and take advantage. And what that means is we cannot leave something like that till the time you graduate. It cannot be taught in 3 weeks or 2 weeks or in 3-hour lecture during the NYSC. For me, it's a sign of illiteracy on the side of policymakers to try to teach entrepreneurship in 3 hours or in 2 weeks during the NYSC. It must be taught from primary school through secondary school. In the second part is the issue of customer acquisition. If you have a very good product, you must also be very good in customer acquisition. And currently, very excellent products are there somewhere, And people who have carried out innovation do not know how to acquire customers. So it's important for us to also learn how to acquire customers. After customers have been acquired, money starts to come in. And that's where the third discipline comes in. And that is the discipline of operational excellence. Some of our fathers who are sitting here, like Mr. Biodun Shubanjo, he may be very creative, so he has a product. He may have acquired some customers, so he started with insight. But if we did not put a system in place for operational excellence, insight will have become an history. And so many entrepreneurs or innovators, they have good products, they have excellent, they have acquired customer, but operationally, they cannot run efficiently. And so nations cannot develop when those three key disciplines are not taught right from childhood. The final fourth thing that I believe is very key in terms of cultural change is customer intimacy and customer retention. Most of the time, we are looking for new customers every day. We fail to realize the fact that yesterday's customer require only about 1/6 of the money to keep him. And we spend like 6 times the price to look for new customers. We forget the people who were there for us in the past. For me, those are the 4 key disciplines that needed to be taught. And that cultural change cannot occur unless we go back. We've got to catch them young. We've got to try to help them when they are still like it's fish in the water. Once you have finished school and you're about 40 years old, it's very difficult to teach you new tricks unless you are a learner, unless you have a spirit of learning yourself. For me, our educational paradigm is extremely poor. The 50 million unemployed Nigerians cannot be resolved by government policies alone or government employing them through the immigration or any ministry. It can only be done through driving innovation and encouraging entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Balen. Now, I'll take a similar question to Kunle Afolayan, and I guess quite a few people here do speak Yoruba, because I remember that while we were in the green room waiting there, Funke and myself and Kunle, we had conversation, and he was talking about a project that he worked on. I would hint at it very quickly. He was talking about something to do with Babalawo, Onishegun, and Adaunse. And he talked about it, and I was like, oh gosh, all this fetish stuff. But by the time he gave a little bit of analysis of it, I was thinking, what makes a man to think of that kind of project that makes it such that you bring an educative documentary that suddenly our culture becomes something quite interesting to either Nigerians or non-Nigerians. Now, tell me, it is definitely not something you learned in the institution of higher learning that you attended. What is it that inspires the creativity that we have seen in the works that you have been able to come up with?
Thank you very much. The innovation in art in Nigeria does not start with my generation. It started with the generation of my father and my father's contemporaries, and I'm talking Adelove, Ogunde, and the rest of them. Majority of these people are purely artists, and all they want to do was to dance, to sing, and to entertain people. And at some point, they decided to commercialize it. Travel around schools, villages, and all of that. In 1976, the whole thing took a new turn when Dr. Olabalogun came from France, and he introduced my father to cinema. I remember my father telling us the story, and he said he was on stage one day, and someone came backstage to tell him that a doctor was looking for him, and he said, "I'm not sick. Why is the doctor looking for me?" And then I said, "No, he's not a medical doctor. He's a doctor of, like, professor, And I said, okay. So after the show, he met with Dr. Labalogun, and he explained that, look, he's been in France for a long time. He has learned film, audio, visual, and he pitched a film project, and that was Ajaniogun, which was shot, and which featured my father as the lead actor. The year after, my father decided to shoot his own film. He didn't go to film school. He didn't, learn hands on camera. He didn't learn how to direct for film, but he was just purely an artist, a stage practitioner. And he did his own script titled Ijao Minera, Fight for Freedom. And this was shot, and the film traveled, festivals, and all of that. I grew up seeing all of that. And after school, I studied business administration. As a child, of course, we're always enjoying the cheap popularity of being a son of a filmmaker. And I remember then, we always, we'll go to location and we want to feature somehow, and the man will chase us away. When it was time, when I was independent, I said to myself, look, I like this field and I would like to do something. I went to Tunde Kilani. He introduced me to, his film titled Shawaroide in 1998, and we shot that. But I was working in the bank, so that limited the chances of featuring in a lot of films. But what I wanted to do majorly was to be a filmmaker. In 2005, I resigned after working in the bank for like 7 years, and I set up Golden Effect. And before then, 8 months, I was thinking, how do I go about this? You can fluke being an actor. You can, but a professor can act. He's been acting all day, and people have been laughing, but you cannot, but you cannot fluke filmmaking. It has to be learned. It's like studying to be a doctor or being a lawyer or an engineer. You must learn all of these things. So I went to film school, studied, filmmaking, came back, and I started. And I looked at the industry and said to myself, okay, what is it or what are those things that people are not doing right? All right? The era of celluloid, which was my father's generation, died at some point because of austerity, inflation, and all of that, exchange rate. Digital came, innovation. People capitalized on it and decided instead of waiting for big budget to shoot film, they will pick camcorder, record drama. Nigerians wants to see drama. They put it on VHS like Prof mentioned. And people were consuming this within and outside. And I said, okay, now that we have expanded the market scope, why can't we improve on the production value? Because improving on the production value, you have captured this market, but improving on the production value, we take it to the next level, where your film can travel film festivals, your film can leverage on the other distribution channels, outside of Nigeria instead of just VHS. But most importantly, I'm a very passionate Yoruba man, and culture is something I believe will sell anywhere in the world. If you're doing audiovisual, you can't shoot gun more than the Americans, and you can't drive fast cars more than the Americans. But you can teach the Americans how to put stones together and make fire. You can teach, and also how to put herbs, we have and what you were talking, what you mentioned about the babalawo and all of that. We grew up using agbo, which is the concussion and all of that. In fact, some of us have incisions on us. I have on my face. And I remember I was just 4 and, I was having nightmare, and I said to my mama, I'm always in masquerade. And they said, okay. And I remember one man came and he used blade to cut my face. And after then, I stopped seeing masquerade, and all of this, we really need to say to the world, yes, Christianity is a religion, all right, and a lot of people get to God through that, Islam is there. If you believe in it and it works, it works. But there are things that Africans are always doing. Everybody, when you mention Babalawo, it's juju and all of that. But when I did a lot of research, I realized that Babalawo is a physician. Babalawo doesn't come to you and say, hey, you will die tomorrow. No. But you go to Babalawo and say, look, I am feverish, or oh, I have these signs. They must consult Ifa, and whatever it is they see, they will tell you, okay, oh, you have to do Ebo, or you have to do Onishegun. Those are the pharmacists. And those are the ones who make the concoction. Those are the ones who get the herbs. Those are the ones who get the, And the Adaunshe, these are the soothsayers. They are different. These are the ones that will come to you and say, that woman living next to your house, you have to buy her red cloth too. If not, some of them are real, some of them are fake, just like we have in other, I mean, it's what it is. But for me, culture is very essential, and you can only use audio-visual, to correct and also to educate, the younger generation.
Thanks, Kule. Okay. I was so looking forward to having Mr. Chris Uwaje here, but I'm quite delighted we have a younger version of him in the person of Mr. Pius Eke here. And because my background is also to some extent in information technology, I would want to ask you, I have seen when you go to London Docklands or you go to Excel and you come to Nigeria and you see very few instances where we have this kind of conversation about innovation, where you have expos where people have opportunity of displaying something they have created or innovated or come up with. We don't have a lot of that in Nigeria. But the question I'm going to ask you is, at times, like Kunle said, his dad and the generation of those forebears of our artistic world, they were not educated. And we have young people whose education at times has nothing to do with the kind of application and software they're looking to develop. What is that ingredient that you will say drives the enterprise, drives the creativity and innovation in IT where you operate?
Thank you very much. Before now, I know in the industry there's software developers. If you have 50 of them and you ask them to showcase their solutions to you, you have 45 of them showing you a payroll system. You have 45 of them showing you a payroll system. And I think that was before now. Good thing, so many things have come into the way now. We have competitions, hackathons, and very many other events and forums that have started creating the competitions among developers. As I speak with you, I know hundreds of developers will be looking at new either mobile or enterprise solutions that they would have to submit for the World Summit Awards, or several hundreds of them that the Institute of Software Practitioners of Nigeria will usually host at Tinapa in Calabar every year. That's October every year. We'll be looking towards more solutions that they would go and feature in such an event. The truth is, the culture has changed. Very many incentives have come on board. With the advent of several incubation hubs, both privately owned and government-instituted incubation hubs that are around now. I think more still has to be done, because it is very, very interesting to know that very many of these competitors in these events, hackathon, as the case that we may have, are students that are not necessarily in the departments of computer science or anything related to information technology. The policy of ISPON made it so open that software development clubs are created in different institutions, and these institutions can receive members from universities, even in the departments of languages, that's Yoruba, and other courses that are not related to information technology, as it were. More efforts needs to be brought into place. STEM education has to be taught properly, and everyone has to be encouraged to actually study STEM, and that is because that is really the three-legged stool of success for a technology-based economic development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have another question. Thank you. I have another question that I was going to ask you, but I changed my mind. I will take it to someone who is not into information technology.
I was talking to my lawyer, and he said he had to draft a contract and then another one. And you know how lawyers' contracts, you know how they sound heretofore, herein, hereafter, and all that. So for me, it's a lot of work. But he told me that he can't also imagine writing a column year in, year out. But for me, the passion for my job makes it look like play. I remember the day Gani Fawemi died. We did 4 editions of the Sunday Sun that day. It wasn't work. And to be able to continue to function at whatever you do for any length of time, you must be passionate about it. I'm passionate about journalism. I'm passionate about my country. So passion for me helps me to go on. Passion for me means that I'll be able to write for the next 40 years. As long as I can find a laptop or whatever Nokia comes up with or Apple comes up with after now, because it won't always be laptop. I'm sure something else will crop up. Now, you can actually do a lot of work on the iPhone. I'm passionate about other things outside of journalism, like a Greek. I didn't even know Kayode was listening to my conversation with Kunle about Adam Shea and Babalawo, and because he's very passionate about what he does, and he was on his feet all the way till we got here. He was passionately on his phone and calling his OB vans in Owerri and Onitsha and everywhere. But if you have a passion in a Greek, and you have a passion in education, you have a passion in the arts, you'll be able to move, to go a longer distance than somebody who got into it to just because he needs a job. As an editor, I would tell my reporters, especially those who are newly coming in, that is this a job for you or is it a career? Because if you come into journalism because you just want a job, you will not last long in the newsroom, because journalism is largely about passion. And our leaders, as I have seen over the years, reporting them, discussing with them, what they lack largely is a passion. They have no passion for the office that they hold. When you see the ones that have passion, you will remember them 10 years after they have left office. That is why even when you don't see someone like Donald Duke on being active on any campaign trail or delivering lectures, there are still things that you remember about him. When our leaders begin to bring passion into the offices that they hold, then we'll begin to see changes in this country. Mr. Bale said that our education system is, I can't remember the word he used, but the word for me is it's faulty, totally faulty, trying to teach how to be an entrepreneur in 3 hours in NYSC. It's laughable. It is because you have somebody leading the education policy, leading the education team, calling himself an education minister, and he doesn't or she doesn't have passion for the job that she does.
There is Motorola 360. I just ordered one a few weeks ago. You can actually dictate everything that you want on your wristwatch. Motorola, I think it's Motorola 360, and you dictate everything. You use it to gauge how much energy you spend. You use it for so many other things, and then it synchronizes with your mobile phone, so it downloads everything you dictated, and your email is done, your letters are done, your Twitter, everything, the whole works. Now, all of these are driven by those 5 ingredients. What is it, as a way of beginning to look at moving forward in Nigeria, what is it that stops us from combining all of these ingredients? Because there are passionate people in Nigeria. There are educated professors in Nigeria. There are people who understand building structures and infrastructures in Nigeria, including those who mentioned stomach infrastructure. All of these things come
That's
together.
infrastructure too.
Yes, it is infrastructure too. What is it that stops us from being able to harness all of these ingredients to drive us into the 21st and 22nd century and enable us to lead in Africa, not just on paper as the largest economy in the continent?
Yeah, but you know the truth of the matter, and we should be careful not to be too hard on ourselves. There's a lot going on here. It's just that it is not captured well enough. I was going to Canada to speak about a year and a half ago, and some night I was on a flight to Paris, and this group of young Nigerians who were on the flight came to me when we got to Charles de Gaulle, and they introduced themselves, and they were young software developers, and they had contracts for Canadian companies doing work in Nigeria for companies in Canada. So there are things happening around us. What we need to do is to excite them more, teach them strategy, because there's, one of the most innovative companies in this world is a company called 3M, formerly known as the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company. And one of the things they do at 3M, for example, is they set certain standards. Their turnover in any given year, at least 34%, it keeps changing, it's a moving goalpost. Last time I checked, it was 34% of the turnover in any given year must come from products that are less than 3 years old. So there's a pressure on the system to innovate. And then their culture supports it. And that at 3M, it's not the research and development guys who are expected. A secretary who has to do work can find something that makes her work better and go to a research development person and work with that person to come up with a new product. Now, one of the products of 3M that has universal application that all of us take for granted and use today is the Post-it. Now, Post-it, for a long time in development, the company had a budget for developing this reusable adhesive, and they kept trying and failing and trying and failing. Then management cut out the project and said, no more, we're done with this. But 3M has a philosophy that allows any staff that has some idea he wants to develop to get what is called a Genesis grant. You come and apply, you get $50,000 to develop a product. There are incentives that go with it. So this guy called At Fry, with his own Genesis grant, built a lab in his basement and kept tinkering with this thing the company had given up on, and one day he screamed, Eureka, and that was Post-it. And today is the world staple. So you need systems, you need things that drive people to commit to continuous work. I mean, I'll give you another quick example. All of us take the microwave oven for granted today. Of course, it came from space technology and all of that, and the Americans began to make microwaves. Samsung, early days, Samsung was trying to play around with let's bring this American thing, break it down, look at it, how did they do it? And their young engineers were fiddling with this microwave thing, and then they thought they had finally gotten it right. The chairman, everybody, the entire workforce literally came to the hall. They were going to demonstrate the microwave oven. And they plugged the thing on, the chairman went, switched it in, the thing exploded. Now, for most people, that's the end of it. And the chairman says, well, this is work in progress. Let's get back to work. 4 years later, they were selling more microwave ovens than the American companies that created the thing. So there's a certain tenacity that must go with the process of innovation that keeps people focused on it.
How do we secure that tenacity across all levels and across all spectrums?
Incentives matter. And you in the media have a very important role to play here. I gave this talk in Oka a few weeks ago about the anniversary of ABS. One of the things that media do is that they confer status. The people that you feature on television, in newspapers, get a halo around them. This so-called status conferral function of the media. If you feature 419 people and just politicians every day, all that people want to do is to be politicians and 419. But if you feature this young innovator who's made the young kids begin to want to innovate and do things like that, and that's a very important role for you.
Okay. All right, that's a doctor of books and ideas. Awesome. That's good. Now I feel cured of whatever disease I had regarding that particular issue. Now, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I'm sure there are some here. There is something about supporting Arsenal. You are an incurable optimist. You're trusting that you'll win the Premiership as often as possible, but it's a difficult one. Now, Kunle, let me ask you, what is it that you think we need to do and do aggressively in Nigeria to make it such that we will have more young people, like Arsene Wenger will say to his team, if you allow your opponent score 3 goals, make sure you score 13. That way you will not lose. What do we need to do to get more young people to do as much as possible? We may not have the best educational institutions in the world. We may not have the best politicians who become the best policy analysts and creators in the world. But can we do something to our young people that would inspire them to become more creative, be like you and a number of other people in the creative, innovative sector?
That's a very difficult question. But I'll find a way around it. Well, to start with, years back, the basic foundation of a child really should be education, and at the moment, our education system is in a mess. Pardon my language. But even in all of that, there are people who, especially people in creative world, in my own world, most of the guys who earn millions of naira today, I was at a meeting today and they were talking of inviting Don Jazzy and Mo and Marvin crew to an event, and and Don Jazzy is asking for 20 million appearance fee. For me, a banker, even a bank MD, will not earn that amount, in few hours. But a lot of these guys, they earn this much. And most of them go and, search their background. Most of them don't even have first degree, not to talk of, I think what the government, if we look at the part of the government, there is need to create an enabling environment. Not creating it to an extent is to our advantage, because if you capitalize on the fact that things are not going on well, then you get creative and you get innovated, and a lot of ideas come to you. And I mean, in my own case, I look at, when I started making film, the cinemas in Nigeria were not taking, the silverbed of this world would not show Nigerian films. You know, they were showing mainly American films. And when I made the Rakwada in 2007, I went to them and they said, it's a Yoruba title film. And I said, okay, watch the trailer. They saw the trailer, I said, it looks good. I said, I want to do premiere. They said, okay, you have to pay for the hall. After the hall, they saw that a lot of people were coming back to ask for the film. So I said, can you please just give it a week to run? I don't mind even if you get the largest share of the as usual, which is what they do, you know. And they agreed to that. The film ran first week. They said, we will keep it. It ran another week. You know, the young kid of them brought it back again. I think it's an individual thing. You know, if you're waiting on government to do things for you, nothing, you know, will ever get done. I think we need to first, the youth of, you know, today needs to emulate those that they think, you know, are contributing positively to the development of the country and also to you know, to their own profile, you know, in a way. And I'm talking in all fields of life. I'm not talking just entertainment. I'm talking in engineering. How many engineering students today, I mean, mechanical engineering students today can, you know, put plug and spanner together, you know, to fix things. Everything is in a mess. But I think with self-determination, which is what some of us have really capitalized on, which has gotten us this far, passion, which my sister mentioned, which is what is getting me going. Because she said, Kunle, why would you shoot a film of 2 million? Only you can try that. And it's not because there is money, but it's just because I can't think of any other way out. You know, once I dream it, and I always see the result before the work is done. And that is what has, you know, been getting me going. So I think youth should emulate that.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll crave your indulgence. I will move away from the norm and I'll put somebody I have great respect and admiration for. Mr. Verdant Zeal is in our midst. And I'm going to ask him to say a couple of words. And I would ask him, over the years, my uncle has passed away, Prince Kendi Adeosun, years ago now. But when you look at what we have done in Nigeria, and I say we because all Nigerians are part of the industry, the advertising industry, because we consume from there. We're involved in education, we're involved in all the sectors. But what he has done, and those who are of his generation, what they've done with the advertising industry in Nigeria is something to celebrate. So, Mr. Verdant Zeal, I'll give you my microphone. I will need you to say a couple of words, and also, I will be asking you, innovation over the years in that industry has made it such that in Nigeria today, some of the best advertising agencies all around the world are looking to collaborate and get affiliated to our advertising agencies in Nigeria. They want to join in working on international public relations and so on. And we know that we are yet to even scratch the surface of what is possible with our young people in Nigeria. A few words from you, sir.
I didn't expect this.
That's innovation.
I think Professor Tommy started all of this when he made some allusion to myself. And now Kayode has latched on that. Funke put it in perspective. You've got to be passionate about what you're doing. I've been in this business for 44 years. And I'm still going. It's not because of the ATM card that one can use, but because of the passion that one has. 35 years ago, when I started Insight, I was very clear in my mind that we would have to innovate. And we did. And the facts are there to support it. And the brief to those who are there now is that they must constantly innovate or they're going to die. Because the 20 bodies are there challenging for the number one position, and that's the way it should be. Because any society that does not compete amongst itself can, in fact, not achieve excellence. All of the things that we have done, apart from even marketing communications, because we ventured into so many areas where we thought we could impact society, make a difference. And I'll give you one example. When by accident we ventured into security, and I mean security as in providing peace of mind, my brief was that, look, we don't know anything about security, but we've seen the people who play there, they're not doing it well. Can we go out there and make a difference? Today, that company employs 16,000 people. I'm sure you know of a company called Halogen. That's correct. And I think, without thumping one's chest, when you see a halogen guy, the chances are that he looks different from competition. It's all about innovation. And that's what we've been talking about, that if this country must move forward, if this country must be in competition amongst the best, because we have incredible people here in this country. Some of the most educated, brilliant minds. But what is lacking, in my view, is that we never, a lot of us don't address ourselves to the task at hand. That's number one. Number two is the fact that, as most people have said here, we look to get employed by government, or it's not going to happen. I think that the challenge for us, what Larry said, we start from the very beginning when kids are at school, primary school, and you begin to teach them about innovation. The thing about entrepreneurship is something that you yourself have to, I think, you must have a mind that's very inquisitive. Again, like Pat said, the attitude in 3M, where you may not be entrepreneurs, but you are entrepreneurs. They encourage you to think, to innovate, to come out with something that's new all the time. What's a new way of solving this problem? And that's what I told our guys to do at Halogen. How do you find solutions to existing problems? How do you think ahead and prefer solutions even as you're thinking ahead? And that's what we try to do in the advertising side as well. We were the first. I said to myself, look, if we stayed around just doing advertising, chances are that we would not be able to have too many people here who would achieve their own potentials. So can we start off a PR company? So we started the Quadrant Company. And I was the one that said, 75% of clients' budget is going on media. And yet we pay no attention to the people who work in our media department. Can we create a media independent? And when we started, the people said I was mad. So it's that ability to think ahead of competition. And I think that, I think I didn't come here to come and give a lecture. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, the one thing that is still missing, though, I won't let you go away just like that. The one thing that's still missing is in the United Kingdom, you've got Barb Rating, and you've got rating agencies that makes it possible for us to know the numbers of people who are watching television at any point in time, listening to radio at any point in time. When are you going to come up with our own equivalent so that we know who's watching, when, and what? Is that an idea you've got in the pipeline as innovation?
No, that would be, I think it would be unfair. Because if we ventured into that kind of business area, then the likelihood is that people are going to say, no, these guys are being unfair. You play in this area, all right? You cannot also be your own police. You cannot be the one that's judging what the other guys are doing. In other words, if I have to invest in a company that's telling me how many people are watching Channels Television, for instance, and I begin to query those figures, my clients are likely to say, well, how can we trust Peter Shobanjo here? We are buying in this system. You are the one that's also investing in a company that's going to judge or telling us how many people are watching, how many people are listening. So it's unfair competition. I would not invest in anything where I'm going to be accused of unfair competition.
Thank you very much. But I guess you can encourage others to do it because we desperately need. Okay, just before we begin to wrap up, I would want to ask Mr. Bale this question because it's to do, he has a focus on leadership. And I remember a few years ago when my daughter clocked 10 years old and she was singing, yeah, I'm double digits, not 9 anymore, double digits, 10. And I said, what do you want to do in the years to come? I was expecting she would say, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a teacher. And she said, I want to be the first British Prime Minister who is from Africa. And I'm like, okay. Now, yes, you've got a British passport, but okay. Anyway, we'll leave that alone. Sir, what is it that we need to do to our young people for us to encourage them to dream? Because it is in dreaming that you come up with innovation. What do we need to do to them? What kind of leadership examples do we give them? Very, very quickly, in just about a couple of minutes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Akitem. I certainly believe, with the best of conviction that I have, I took an early retirement in order to teach at a time when a lot of people do not love to teach. It's as a result of passion. But either you teach or you don't teach, wherever you are. And most of the times, people report to me when I used to work for multinational, usually older than me. Tunji will be able to confirm this. What I found out that in any position you are, you could be a leader. From being a cleaner, a messenger, leadership is about influence. And when you have clear in your mind that you have an aspiration to keep on inspiring people before you eventually expire yourself and go to meet your Messiah. Once you try to create an environment where you are inspiring people, then those young kids could be inspired. Like Funke mentioned, it doesn't matter what your first degree is. It doesn't matter at all. It's what are you passionate about. I studied pharmacy. I never practiced for a single day since I left school. I went into sales, marketing, strategy. And at a certain stage in my life, I enjoyed teaching more than any of those things. I'd worked all through from Gambia to Kenya to Mauritius. I've worked in France, and I just felt I just love to teach. And I have passion for it, and I'm inspiring other people in my own little way. I believe the legacy we could leave for the young is to really inspire them, to help them with their dreams. We cannot impose on them what they should do. But whatever they desire to do, we have a responsibility at every level to encourage them, to keep on building them up. Yes, many people have spoken about passion. Passion is good. But there are two other ingredients that are essential for innovation. And I want to close with that. You need to be able to have speed. When you have an idea, you must start working on it almost immediately. Otherwise, other people will be seen as innovator over you. Second, the third outside passion and speed is energy. You must be energetic. And the 4 forms of energy you must work on a daily basis. Physical energy, emotional energy, mental energy, spiritual energy. That's what keeps people going. The first time I met Mr. Verdant Zeal, I expected he was going to be a far bigger person than this. It's such an energetic person. And it's because he's putting all those things into consideration. So, if we are going to promote innovation, and help drive a culture of innovation. We cannot leave everything in the hand of government. Wherever you are, in channel, you can. Innovation is not new products or everything. The thing you are currently doing, challenge them to improve upon it. And our leaders must stop providing solutions all the time to the problems in their organizations. I run 4 different companies today. I was never an entrepreneur until I retired from Pfizer. And what I do, I go to each one of them, and say, you have problem A, B, C, and I ask you, give me 2 alternative answers or ways to solve it. So you don't come to me with problem unless you already thought through some solution. Helping you to agree on solution is not too difficult. So because of it, every single person who works with me directly is an innovator. So they look for ways to improve things. When problems occur, they solve it. I'm just a figurehead. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
Excellent. Okay, we definitely must wrap up now. And I will just say that 2 seconds, in just 2 seconds, Pius, in the technology industry, in 1 or 2 sentences, what is it that you will say? Because we know that on the one hand, we've got transformation, on the other hand, we've got change. Whether you're transforming or you're changing, you've got to be creative or innovative. What will be the 1 sentence you're saying to us as Nigerians now that will help the technology industry? 1 sentence.
I would say competition is key. There should be more forum and fora where we would bring young minds together to be able to engage them in very constructive and meaningful competitions. There, I tell you, you will marvel at the solutions that will emerge from such gathering. It is also very, very key to be able to sustain these products or solutions that will emerge from such fora, because over years, I have not seen the average Nigerian that have used any of those solutions that have emerged from competition so far in the past 3 years. So I think incubating these ideas and making it scalable is a way to go. Thank you.
All right. We've got 35% women being said to be in government or whatever percentage, and I cannot hand over to you without giving the woman just one opportunity, one final opportunity to say a couple of words. Funke, now, the creative industry, every industry actually, is covered by the media. Prof has thrown a challenge at us, and a number of people always will do when it comes to writing and it comes to the media. What is it that we need to do to get more creative, to get more innovative in the coverage and reportage of events in Nigeria that would enable us to showcase those who are doing excellently well so that they inspire others?
It's just being creative at everything. When I started when I resumed as the Sunday Sun editor, I thought that a fashion page, everybody's doing fashion page. So what else is new that I have to do? So on the fashion page, I started what we call today Fashion Court. It started in 2008. And we're still doing well at it without attracting libel. We joke, we use soft words to tell those who are improperly dressed to dress better next time. Whatever we are doing in the media, we will try to showcase those that are doing well. But it's not every time we can agree on how well a particular person is doing. But it's now very important because whether we are transforming or changing, we have reached a point in our national life that we need to do whatever we're doing right now, we need to start doing it differently. And that should be at the back of the mind of every media practitioner, every Nigerian, that whatever you are doing right now, you need to do it differently. Otherwise, somebody is going to come take over your job. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And that's it. I guess you probably will have...
Yes. We have room. We're going to be out of here in the next 15, 20 minutes. I promise you, everybody. We know everybody is very busy. So we're going to keep it short. We only have 2 or 3 items left. We're going to throw open the questions. I'm going to go around. So, Kaide, you be up here. We have 4 questions we can ask. If you keep it simple, keep it short, just give us your name and your question. I'll come to you. And we also have a gentleman there with a microphone. Just for any member of the panel, if you have a question, should we start? Okay, there's a gentleman over there. Try there. Just give me your name. Do you have any hands up here? Okay. Give me your name, 4 only, and then any question you have, okay?
My name is Adesoye Paul. I'm from Caleb University. My question is, I want to direct my question specifically to Professor Patutomi. As a finance person, many a times you have performance measurements for things, especially, let's say for instance now, portfolio, securities, and measuring the economy as a whole. I would like to ask, what's the performance measurement for innovation? How do you measure innovation? That's my question.
Should we respond or just take all the questions straight away? Okay, quick answer then.
Quick answer. There are many ways that you can surely measure innovation. I gave one already with the 3M example, where there is a clear target. If they don't meet that target of turnover of 34% coming from products that are less than 3 years old, somebody answers for it. So on the one hand, it's an incentive. It's a basis for holding accountable. But for the commercial enterprise, the measure is always the bottom line. How are we growing market share relative to competition, for example? We may want innovation that can help us dominate a certain kind of market. I mean, if you look at the competition in the software industry, it's clear, you can tell, or search engines, you can tell what's happening between the various players there, and what direction is Google traveling, what direction is that person traveling. So how far ahead of the competition you stay is a pretty decent measure of how you are innovating. But you can have at even levels of startup types, what solutions, what kinds of problems affecting, say, school pupils are we coming up with? One of the biggest problems of education in Nigeria, for example, is the teacher question. Who can best come up with solutions that can deal with the teacher problem in Nigerian education? The first one to get X number of schools with remote teaching possibilities. That's innovation that person has won on. So you can measure like that continuously around the place. Performance, outcomes, in terms of the bottom line, in terms of number of students reached. That's a good example actually for a teacher. You know, how many more students can we reach in remote areas with quality teaching from a remotely located person? And there are many technologies that you can use in that regard. So the better technologies that you come up with and achieve more is a clear measure of performance in that regard.
All right, thank you, sir.
How do you manage this? What you have passion for does not put food on your table. What you have passion for does not put food on your table. But what you don't have passion for put food on your table. How do you manage this? Because presently, what I have passion for does not put food on my table. What I have passion for, what I have passion for does not put food on my table. But what I have passion for.
What you don't have passion for. All right.
It's clear.
All right. Okay.
I think they get the idea.
Okay.
What you have passion for doesn't put food on the table.
Yeah.
But what you put food on the table is not your passion.
Yes, obviously.
All right. I'm
Funke?
sure a number of people here would want.
It is not, you are not suffering from a special illness. Most of us are also suffering from that illness in different percentages. An artist, a painter, may have a passion for painting, but you know you don't get to hand the big box in painting overnight. So whatever is putting food on your table helps you to focus on your painting. And eventually, you will be able to get your passion to put food on your table by being hardworking at the other thing. That's your day job. The day job, because you have passion for the other thing that you have passion for, eventually you will get round to it. Now, I've been reading novels. I've been reading books since I was a child because I am a child of 2 teachers. So I started reading early. And I've always wanted to write a novel. Write something like you want to carry around, like you carry Sidney Sheldon, Jackie Collins. I haven't done it, but I've written. I've found a way to vent. One day, I'm going to become Jackie Collins. My passion is intact. I'm deploying it in a different way to put food on my table. There are shortcuts that you can take legally, nicely, normally, to get to where you are going. Because you have passion for that thing, you're not likely to lose focus. You're not likely to drop it. Keep your passion alive. Use your day job to fund your passion. And eventually you'll be able to stay with what you have passion for.
Thank you. Fantastic. Now, I'm keeping count. I have a gentleman here. I couldn't say no to him because if you stand up, please. Can you stand up, please, sir? If you can just help me. Today is his birthday. So please, help me sing Happy Birthday. I can't hear you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Azu. Happy birthday to you. All right, it's Azu Arinze, publisher of Yes Magazine. You have a question, it's your birthday, so I'm going to be nice. All right. Question, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. My question is for Mr. Biodun Shobanjo. I would like to find out from you, sir, what is the wisest decision that any businessman can make? Thank you very much.
Okay. Maybe the answer will be not to answer the question.
Firstly, I'm not a member of one of the panelists. What a question. I can't answer the question, honestly. It's too wide, honestly. Azu, I can't help you. I'm sorry.
All right, that's an honest man. Okay. Okay, the lady here, lady. Can your name, please?
My name is Sekinat Habib, and my question is directed to the Prof. Please, could you throw more light on what you mean by global value chain? Value chain.
Wow. I was hoping to keep it very brief. Value chains really is, every product or every service, every value that you create has a chain from start, for example, input, process, marketing, sales, all the way down. That's the value chain. All the way from input to the ultimate output end. In terms of how you sell, that's a whole area of that value chain. If it's a global value chain, it means, for example, if you are looking at one of my favorites, sesame seeds. Sesame seeds grows in the wild in central Nigeria, most of central Nigeria.
Now, when you eat a McDonald's hamburger, those things on the hamburger are sesame seeds. If we decide as a country that we want to dominate the global value chain of sesame seeds, it means that we organize people to grow plantations of sesame seeds. We become the best at processing it. And we assure McDonald's that every shop in Latin America will get at this time this quality of sesame seeds. We become the least cost, highest value producers of sesame seeds for Latin American use. We dominate that global value chain.
Thank you. I know we have a lot of hands. We're going to have to keep it short. We're going to like to ask Mr. Tunji.
Okay.
He's got a question.
All right, I have a question. I believe that everything we'll be talking about here and perhaps in other fora is all determined by leadership, the quality of the leadership and so on and so forth. One thing that I've always been fascinated with, I think, is the position of late Papa Obafemi Awolowo as about benevolent dictatorship. And I hear about what Lee Kuan Yew has been able to do in Singapore, what Mahathir did in Malaysia. And you did mention, you made a little reference to that this morning. Am I right to think and to assume that for a country like ours, benevolent dictatorship will be the way to go for us to really get things done, and that will take us on the way of emancipation? Prof.
Well, I think that the idea of a benevolent dictatorship is stereotyping leadership, really. Because leadership, if it's going to be good, if it's going to be leadership, has to be benevolent. Leaders, there's a Yale study that says compassion will be the most important leadership attribute of the 21st century. So leaders, first of all, are people who care about the people that they lead. So in that benevolence, now the dictatorship part, and this is the part I think those who hit at Lee Kuan Yew are not completely being fair. Yes, he was a very, what's the right word, firm guy, you know. Remember the case of the American kid who they flogged for spraying graffiti years ago and stuff like that, you know. Yes, but he was always re-elected. People say, Lee Kuan Yew was in power as dictator. He was not a dictator in the sense that he imposed himself. He won an election all of those years. I was in Singapore the day he stepped down as prime minister in 1990. It was during that World Cup. Because I will watch his parliament session as he's in, and I will go and find out what's happening in Italy. You know, that was the year Cameroon got far. But you saw the man enshrine something. His integrity was real. His passion for serving his people was very real. And so he was a leader. Benevolent and dictator are just labels that people put on things to make it look like, this tough man self. It was just basically a man who had a vision for his people, had a passion for serving those people, but would not brook too much nonsense. Let's stay in line. He behaved himself, expected everybody else to behave themselves. Period.
Thank you very much, sir. We're sorry we don't really have apologies to anybody who wants to ask a question, but like Tunji said, we will save a lot of the questions for the next event that we do. So we have to wrap it up now. Really apologies to everybody. I know a certain doctor wanted to ask a question, so we will save it for another time. We have last three pieces of business for today. I'm not going to ask him the questions. I'd like to call on Chief Shobanjo to help us. We want to honor some of our panelists today. So if you can just join me on stage, sir. Can I give him a round of applause, please? Sir, we would like if you could help us to honor some of our panelists by giving them the plaque to getting involved today. So please, first step up. Please welcome Mrs. Funke Ogbemode, please. Madam. Congrats, madam. Well done. Next to step up, please, Mr. Kunle Afolayan. Please, can we have a round of applause for him? And thirdly, representing Mr. Chris Uwaje, we have Mr. Paya Seke. Who please step up, please, sir? Round of applause for him, please. Next up, we have Mr. Lere Bale. Please step up, sir. And not forget, of course, our very eloquent panelist, our moderator today, Mr. Kaede Akintemi. Please step forward, sir. Can we give a round of applause for him, sir? And a round of applause, please, for our professor himself, Professor Patu Tomi. And last but not least, we would like to call on our chairman, Sir Steve Omojafo, to receive a plaque from another giant in the advertising and media industry, please. Can we have a round of applause, please? And also, we'd like to, if Tunji can come and join us, please. And we'll, after the presentation of the plaque, we'll ask her. Can we ask members of the panel to please join them, please? Can we just step up, sir? So there you go, sir. Just get a bit closer, everybody. Please, can I round of applause for these wonderful gentlemen and ladies? Well, can we have... Thank you, thank you. Can you just have a panel sit down again, please, sir? Our second to last bit of business, the vote of thanks. I would like to call on Nkiru Ogadimma, who is an Associate Director of Verdant Zeal. Nkiru, please, could you step forward and give us a vote of thanks, please? Can I have a round of applause for her?
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the convener of the Innovention Lecture Series and our group managing director, Mr. Tunji Ologbude, I would like to say thank you to each and every one of you that have honored our invitation to be here today. And I'm pretty sure that is a worthwhile time for you to have spent here. Thank you so very much to especially Chief Chobanjo. We want to say a great thank you to you, sir, for honoring our invitation. It's indeed exciting to have you here, sir. Thank you again to the panelists that we also have here, to our board of directors, and especially our guest speaker today, Professor Utome. We want to say thank you very much for the insightful knowledge that you also put through here. We well appreciate it. We would also like to thank our partners who are heavily represented here as well. The Vanguard Group, we want to say thank you, especially to our own Uncle Sam, our very own Uncle Sam. Thank you so much. Although he's not here, but I'm sure that will be extended to him. The Leadership Group, we want to say thank you. Media Crush, Autobot Studio, Sinantra, Genesis Deluxe Cinema, and so on and so forth. We also want to say thank you very much to the students from the Caleb University. I'm sure you have learned a lot. And when you go back and as you progress in your school and whatever you do, you will always make reference to this series that you actually visited today. Thank you very much to each and every one of you, our friends, our families, our clients, wherever you are seated. Thank you, thank you, thank you again for making this program an exciting one. God bless you. See you again next year.
The last bit of business, please. I'd like to call on Lanre Oyegbola, Executive Director of Verdant Zeal, just to give us the closing prayers, please. That's all. Thank you very much, sir. I know we're all busy men. Just as the last item, I promise you. Yes, of course, please. Everyone, can we everyone be upstanding?
Shall we please pray? Father, we want to thank you once again. We thank you for yet another year. We thank you for starting with us, and we thank you for how far you've brought us. We thank you because we know that indeed you begin to steer our minds on the path to discover not just new things, but the things that will begin to propel our nation, that will propel our industry, even to greater heights in the name of Jesus. Lord, we pray that as we depart from here, none of us will depart to death in the name of Jesus. We return, oh God, to our various abodes in peace in the name of Jesus. Thank you because this time next year it shall be greater, and Nigeria will have moved even in a direction that every one of us will rejoice. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Amen.
I'm sorry to break protocol in doing this, but I really need to especially still recognize Sir Steve Omojafo, who is our chairman today and has always been a very, very great friend of the house. Please, a big, 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 big round of applause for him. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you. God bless you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a fantastic series. I hope you've taken something from it. Godspeed and safely journey back to your offices and your homes. Thank you very much. Very much. Fantastic day. All right. Thank you. Good night and go well with God.